We had a lot of success last night, folks. We had Sharon and Kirk and Hallie doing the heavy lifting, being the tackling dummies, and the folks that Ross always has his eye on, which makes me smile. I just love seeing people achieve greatness. And, each one of these little victories adds up. So I'm very excited about that. I see that we have some new faces in the audience. This is a class, a follow up to last night. So if you're not familiar with digital maker spaces or online social audio type classes, Tech in School has designed a lot of interesting things for us to learn and use AI cohorts in order to achieve the end result. Sometimes not. Sometimes it's just, a grudge match with some code. But needless to say, this is the fifth uh, session of our fourth season. So many of these folks have been gathering for well over a half a year every Wednesday night to improve themselves, to hack their own education, and reskill in the age of AI. And Thursday mornings are when we catch up with our folks that are usually future dwellers overseas. I see that Dave Meir is in the audience. Folks that have different time zones. So this is to help them out. We're going to test some microphones right now. Cash Money Kev, can I test your microphone and catch in with you? How many hours of sleep did you get last night? Because I think you were in the afterglow.
I got enough. I'm all good and ready to rock and roll as always. Sarah, I hope your morning's going good as well as everybody else's. I'm super excited to get this recap rolling. I know Alicia's got the live stream. It's up top. If anybody needs it, be sure to follow along there because I know we're going to be running through some intricate stuff from last night. Um, I too was proud of everybody last night, Sarah, because Ross was telling me afterwards that it was definitely the hardest week, and everybody powered through. And so I'm just proud of everybody for sticking strong and doing what they could and listening and following along the Ross. And yeah, it was cool to see. Alisher, I'll test your mic, brother, if you're ready, um, and see how you're doing. Hopefully, you guys got some good sleep as well. I'm excited.
Good morning, guys. How's everybody's night? I uh, I started coding this project a little bit earlier, adding some new features as well. So hopefully today we'll do a little bit of a recap of week 2, 3, 4, and yesterday. So we get like an overall recap before we head into week 6, and we'll try to answer any of your questions. And we'll also go over what we did yesterday, which was some housekeeping with GitHub and how else you could use GitHub to maybe merge, see what changes you're making, and then we'll deploy our latest version as well. I think we have a few some new features from you guys like the open router integration, and hopefully I'm almost done with this file integration, so maybe we'll add that as well. So that'll be an option for you.
Alistair, I just want to say thank you. Um, I know how much time and energy you put into this, and um, I'm really, really thankful for you and your just hard work and dedication. Um, Improving everything else also last night. I think that's one of the testimonies to tech in schools is that there's always learning and iterations going on. There's always more improvement. And as you teach the classes, what's so interesting is how you listen to the students and evolve. And, I just want to commend you for that because a lot of times curriculums will just kind of stick to the path as opposed to really putting their finger on the pulse of the folks that are attending and their needs. And so I love the way that you've done things. And so I just wanted to give you your flowers and a big old hug because that means a lot to a lot of people. I think a lot of folks that attend our classes struggled in traditional, conventional learning environments because they felt left behind. And how the folks that have been attending these classes, seeing their achievements and the success, it raises not just self-esteem, but also powers them forward to innovating some incredible stuff, taking those ideas to impact. So I just want to give you a big hug. I see that we've now God, I think most of the people in the room, I see the star boss is on in the speaker role. For those of you that do not like the delay, right, in the audio, come up and be a speaker so that you can hear in real time, and you don't have the delay. It's usually about 10 seconds. So if you're somebody that is struggling, when you are following along, being in the speaker box actually helps you be in real time a little bit better and, concentrate. I see that Cassandra is also here and William has arrived. Tommy is back. So I think we're ready to go, Alisher, if you're ready to go.
Yeah, so let's see. We'll start with week two and what we did in week two, and then we'll go from there. I think we'll do that. It'll be like a quick review. So let's see where we started. So in week two we got this project, right? This is the clone of essentially Canva, but remade in Next.js with ChatCN components and some interesting integrations. So the first integration is Neon for database, managing users. Then you have Stripe, of course, for accepting payments. There's some other interesting integrations here. Like when we go to images, this uses um, Unsplash, which is a free image library where you can also upload to it as well. Um, it's completely free and you can apply for a developer when you go to production. And they have a pretty big free limit. So you're not going to be really hitting any of these limits unless you have thousands of users. Then there's some AI integration here as well. So originally, it had this replicate integration where you can generate images. And we also later on added this chatting integration with Open Router where you can chat with any of the models. Now those are the basics of week two. We went to these websites and we connected all the APIs. Right, and we also deployed them on Vercel. So here I have my Vercel. And when we deployed it to Vercel, we added all these environment variables and they connected and we're able to sign up. We're able to fake buy our subscription, test out actually making a design, making a template. So another thing we went over. And I think that's where we capped off week two. Then in week three, we continue with that, connecting to social logins. So all of you by now should have these logins where you log in with Google and GitHub. So I recommend you check and make sure you have it. So I'm going to go to my app and I'm going to try to log in with Google. I'm going to try to log in with GitHub. So here we have them. Seems to be working. Now, I also highly recommend you check out the Slack. And there you're going to find maybe some pointers towards what you need to add to your environment variables for both of these integrations. Yeah, there you go. Automatically logs me in. Cool. So that's pretty much what we did in week three. I think that's where we finished off connecting all of our APIs. Might have also been week four as well. Now, another thing we added before we stopped in week four is we added some of these backgrounds, right? So for me, I just went in the files, and whenever you're in your VS Code, typically all of these images are going to be in a public folder. So whatever images you see on your website, you will most likely find them in this public folder. And as you guys can see here, there's other images as well. So when you share your app, your website might have a Vercel logo, right? So this is where you can change that as well. Some of the social share logos. I don't even know where this travel.png is, so you can change some of these as well. There's coming soon, and there's the background that we changed to. Here we have our logo as well. It's an SVG file. These are the small customizations you could have made to make your canvas look a little bit different from everybody else. Of course, there's big customizations that you could have made with AI, like changing the colors, changing the shapes, maybe changing how some of this UI works. Now, what I highly recommend you guys do is right now that we're, past week 4, this is your basic setup. This is where, everything that the original project came with works. So what I recommend is you go test it out. You make some edits. You try to download things. All right. So if I go to my project here, I want to see if the drawing capability works. I want to see if these shapes are working. Some of these color options. Pretty much make sure that none of this is broken or not functioning. Remember, there's a lot of APIs that you integrated that you want to make sure that they're working before you start making more changes to it. So for example, does this export work when I download as a PNG? It does. Awesome. You want to test some of this AI. Another thing we figured out in week 4 is where to actually edit some of these AI tools. So the original tool that this comes with is generating images with Replicate and also removing the background with Replicate as well. So this is all located inside of AI.ts file. So you can search in your Visual Studio Code for AI.ts. And you'll find it inside of SRC app API route. And here's where you can find, well, number 1, the first thing that pops up is remove background. So these correspond to models on Replicate that you can just switch out. And there's generate image, which currently uses Flux. You can switch this out to the latest Stable Diffusion, something else. I think that was the extent of the changes we made. Now, some of you, which is great, open source some changes. So Sharon, Ross, and Kirk, they open source this Open Router integration. So you guys can find that in Slack. And it just adds a few extra files to create this integration with an LLM, right? So you can talk to it, ask it questions, see what you can do with your design, get some ideas. Let's see if this background remover works as well. And keep in mind, all of these calls that you're making to remove background, to generate images, these are all paid. But the calls you're making to something like Unsplash are free. So whenever you generate an image, you are paying to replicate. I think it's depending on the model. This Flux model is maybe like $0.01, maybe less than $0.01. The remove background model is probably also less than $0.01. They're pretty quick, pretty light. But just keep in mind, whenever users are using these, it does cost money. So somebody's going to need to pay it eventually.
Just to jump in real quick and make sure it's on the recording, keeping track of these pennies matters. And so I think that was one of the ideas that someone had, was a counter to show exactly how you're spending your dinero. Because for folks that this is new for them, those fractional pennies can add up real quick. And so you want to be mindful of that and make sure that also that you're taking note, whether it's in your Notions doc, whether it's in your journal, whether it's whatever it is that you're keeping your passwords and everything else. Make sure you understand where those subscriptions are, because they can get lost in the shuffle really quickly. And a lot of times we forget what we're paying for. So having that listing for you is going to help your future self in trying to suss out where money is leaking from your business model. So I just wanted to put that out there, because you don't want any nasty surprises later on. So go ahead, Alisher.
Yeah, and also if you go to Replicate, so since this uses Replicate, you can actually go to your invoices and it'll tell you how many times something ran, for how long it's been running, because this is all just GPU time, compute time. So you can see exactly which model takes up the most money. For example, here's a bill for one of the months, and I can see what people use the most. I see my video morpher. Morphcraft. Very, very heavily used. You know, it's a video model. A lot of time. People
Well, it's
upscale a
just a
lot.
discipline too to keep an eye on it
Yeah.
because you can totally immerse yourself in these systems and have no idea. Dave Muir also has his hand up for you, Alisher. I'm not sure if you can see that. Good morning,
Uh,
Dave.
what, what's
Go
up,
ahead.
Dave?
Good afternoon, everyone. How are we?
Oh, future dweller.
I wanted to jump in because this is so relevant. Something I spent a lot of time on was trying to understand the cost of usage, and I think it's like for me, doing the numbers on something, and especially services like Replicate are great because you can go and look at a model and see the exact pricing and understand if somebody clicks a button, that's how much it's going to cost me every single time. But I see sometimes people get excited of the implementation stage. And for me, I'm building an AI generating app right now with pricing, with credits, with quota based systems as well. So I give people X amount of LoRa trainings, but I give them credits for images and stuff like that. And before I built anything, I built a spreadsheet looking at what is the profit margins, because when I looked at it initially, it looks okay on paper, and you plan it with best case scenario and 1,000 people will join. But when I looked at it on paper, it was really easy to quantify. Oh wow, that's like 60% of profit gone when you add in costs. And there was a point where I got to compare it and say, I'm getting 20 bucks just to send a newsletter to somebody. I could just continue doing that. Why would I do this if I'm only making like $3 and I have to support and update and keep it secure and safe and all of that? And those numbers, before I started building and coding this AI website, those numbers influenced it so much. I cannot recommend enough figuring out your numbers and planning your sales and marketing. Like, I mean, an A4 page. You don't need a fancy website, but if you can sell it on an A4 piece of paper, well, then you're going to build lots of features just to be cool, to build lots of features instead of actually building what you can sell to people. Like, I cannot express how important this is. I've a back end for people, which is usage, which shows them exactly the models, how many they are allowed to use, how much training, simple counters when they use stuff again and again. But for me, that's really useful. So I can just quantify, you know, Alisher has X amount of tokens, but like realistically, planning on worst case scenario, Alisher could potentially cost me X. So I need to charge X multiplied by Y, and that's where I arrive at Z. And I think don't plan a best case scenario. Like, if your app is good and your AI is good, you want people to use it. So you want to be happy if they max out what they can do for you. You don't want to be the gym membership and nobody ever goes to the gym. There's always that ongoing cost. But like, seriously, plan it out in a spreadsheet or an A4 piece of paper and make it as simple as possible, but also as future proof as possible. Like, I'm at the stage of a better version of something and comes along to replace Flux. Well, now I have the pricing model in place that I understand. Even if the better model costs 10 times what Flux costs, I know what I charge somebody else as well before that model is even released. Fundamentally important.
So true, Dave. This is why we keep you around. It is vital, absolutely vital. And if you listen to the Innovators Think Tank on Saturday, when you're pitching an idea, or Alex Damsker, or even Dave's space, understanding all of those little pennies is so important, and it has to be on the front of your mind as you're doing these projects. And then sometimes we just don't think about it because we're just immersed in just trying to code. You're just trying to build the thing. But because it's so foreign and new to so many of us,
Yeah, but you have
that
to be
we don't
careful of
understand
sunk
it.
cost.
Yep,
Sunk cost is really dangerous for creators. I know from coding apps and websites, just because it took me 100 hours and it's my Mona Lisa means nothing to
absolutely.
you. You're like, no, I'm still not paying $5 for this. And I highly recommend anybody that is going to take this knowledge and commercialize it and monetize it, sell it first. Like, really sell it first, market it, find an audience. That's what I've done with Scale with AI. I've an education part. Even though I'm building an AI image app, I have people who I'm teaching how to use AI. And now I already have a captive audience that is relevant to it. And likewise, I'm going to launch in maybe 2, 3 weeks. but it's going to be a wait list and it's going to be invite only. And I'm going to, really work with those people to get it better. But I'm bringing it to a point that it's wait list worthy rather than it's going to scale to the world. It's like if I can't sell to a small group of people that I know fairly intimately, it's going to be really hard to sell to strangers.
100%. 100%. Highly recommend, folks, follow Dave Muir. He knows his stuff. We're going to continue and plow through, but it is this little kind of facet or offshoot today is really, really important. And to have it on the recording for those that did not show up this morning, make sure that you look to your left and right, your fellow students, and give them a hat tip and say, hey, by the way, you need to re-listen to this section. It is really, really, really important. Alisher, continue on, friends. You were recapping, and sorry we went on the tangent, but it was necessary. Go ahead, hun.
No, it was definitely necessary and it was very relevant. And I guess if you guys have any questions up until everything we did yesterday, I highly suggest you come up. And then we're gonna move on to just recapping what you could do with GitHub, creating new branches, changing the branches in Vercel, and all that. So, any questions up until the point where we made everything in our clone work? So, does everybody have it working? So where they can log in, you can log in with Google, you can log in with GitHub, and you're able to create designs and export them.
I think we're good to go, hun.
Yeah, awesome. So what we did yesterday is we created a new branch and we implemented some of these changes that Kirk, Sharon, and Ross put together with Open Router. Now that was, I guess, getting used to it was a little bit challenging, especially with GitHub. There's a lot of options, and especially when you're using the commands, it's a little bit complicated. But we have GitHub Desktop, so for us, it shouldn't be too hard. So let's take a look at GitHub Desktop. That's where we're going to start. So here, I have my integration that I'm actually adding right now. So this is going to have some file for upscaling. Now, the best practice here is to create a new branch. All right, so typically here we have our repository in the first column on top. It says current repository. Then we have current branch, and then you can get updates. So for me, because I travel a lot, so I work on my laptop and I work on my desktop, I like to keep these very up to date. So I fetch pretty much every time I get to my computer. It's a good practice. Also, if you just made like a small change on the GitHub website, Fetch will essentially download whatever the latest synced changes are with your project in the cloud. GitHub is pretty much like iCloud for code. Okay, so let's check this out. In current branch, if you were to make a new change and try not to affect the so-called production build, what you have live right now in your Vercel, what you would do is you would click on this current branch and make a new branch. So for me, I have a branch. I'll make a new one anyway, and we'll look at some options. And then we'll see what else we can do when it comes to merging and all that. So, okay. So let's make a new branch. This one's called with file. I'll call it something similar, since it's going to have all these changes that I'm bringing in. So it's pretty easy. You're going to do a new branch, and here you have a choice. Do I want to create a new branch that's just fresh, that has none of these changes that I've been making, or do I want to make a new branch for these changes? So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a branch that is called old, right? So old is going to just mean, or version 1. Let's do version 1. Version 1 is just going to mean that it's going to have the original changes that are in this main branch. So whatever that's currently live on my Vercel, this is going to be the branch. It's going to be like a backup, right? I'm going to do create branch. And here it asks me, do I want to take these changes that, if you think logically, have file integration from this file branch? No, I want to keep them there and version 1 will just have the regular no changes. Right, so that's kind of how this version control branching works. Now, if I want to go back, so version 1 exists, you can publish it. Publishing means this branch is going to get synced to the GitHub website, github.com. If you want to go back to the previous branch you're working on, so for me, I was working on the file branch. So if I go back to this branch, since I didn't commit these changes, I left them in my branch uncommitted, unsynced. I have what's called a stash, right? I can click view stash, and I'll be able to see all of the changes that have been made for this file integration. And I can also restore them, right? So I can just restore all of these, and now I can keep editing. So that's how you can kind of balance between two branches, right? I can go back to the other one. I can stay in this one. I can commit this. I don't think this works yet, so I'm probably not going to commit this yet. But that's the basic setup, right, for managing these branches. So I'll commit this for now. I highly recommend adding summaries and descriptions. This will become extremely useful as you're making changes to your app. So for here, I'll say added file, API support. And now in the description, I'm just going to say added option in export to export upscale image. Export upscaled image. Just some notes for yourself, for your future self. Because eventually, once you integrate a bunch of features, you're going to start to forget where you started and where the mistakes started to happen. And I'm going to push in order to get this synced up. So now my live build completely unaffected. But there is a deployment still happening, and we can actually check it out in my Vercel. It's going to be called a preview build. As you can see right here, it's labeled as preview. So I guess ideally what you want to do is you want to also set up some environment variables for preview, right? Ideally, you'll have your production, and your production will have all the live keys for Stripe, for Neon, and whatnot. And then you'll have a preview. They'll have a separate set of keys for preview, right? So you don't accidentally mess with a thing that's live where you have users. So that's kind of like your ideal environment. For now, while we're just developing it, there's no users. We're just playing around with it. Using the same set of keys is fine. Error expected. I have yeah, I messed around with this, so I definitely gotta fix it. But for now, we also have another branch. We have that version 1 branch. And now, when it comes to actually changing branches, if you go to deployments, you're going to notice a few things. I'm going to zoom in on my deployments. Up until now, up until we started creating new branches, all of the deployments were production. Now that we have these new branches, and as you can see, they're labeled. This one's called with file upscale. This one's called main. We have another one called version 1. So up until you started creating these branches, they're all production. Now they're preview. So preview means it's not the live link. In order to get to the preview, you actually have to go to this link that it provides you with, this unique link. Or you can set up like a beta link. If you guys are familiar, we have Pixio main and we have Pixio beta where we test out some changes. So you can do something similar here. If I go to domains, I can add a domain and I can assign it to a specific branch. All right, so if we go to, let's assign it to the version 1 branch. So I'm gonna put image AI master version 1. Vercel.app. Now remember, whenever you test this on a new link, you're going to need to create new webhooks because it's a new link, right? You might need to create a few new other things in order to allow this link to properly work. But I think for now, for us, it's just the webhook in order to test Stripe. Otherwise, the webhook already exists on the old link, right? It's purely to test out if you want to test out like new subscriptions or something that you've done to the subscriptions. Now, right now it's assigned to main. I can edit and I can assign it to a different branch. I can assign it to version 1. Right, so now I have a preview branch that is also assigned to its own domain. So I can go and view it. I don't think there's actually a deployment here. There is a deployment. And so now this is a branch that's separate from main. Remember, your main one is always going to typically have your production, right? And if you wanted to change what the production is, well, it's really simple as well. You can go to Get Options in Settings on your project, and right here you're going to see the production branch is main. All I have to do is just change this to version 1 and make sure the spelling here is exactly how it is in your GitHub. So if I go to GitHub, over here in the top left of my project, I have branches. Make sure it's spelled exactly the same in terms of capitalization, spaces, and then it should be able to connect. Cannot set because it's a preview domain. Okay, so if I just get rid of my domain, because it already has a domain, you don't really need to set as production to see it, but I'll just delete this for now. But again, great practice is having 2 separate domains, one for your main website that's live, that's unaffected whenever you make changes, and one that's preview, where you test all the changes and then eventually, those changes make it to production once they're tested. That's the ideal practice. Now, the thing with Vercel is sometimes, it's not really going to redeploy automatically. So a good practice here, simple practice, go to your branch. So I want to deploy this version 1 branch as production. I have made that change in Vercel already, but it's not doing it yet. So easy change you can make here is edit the README. And editing the README, while it has, no impact code-wise whatsoever, actually triggers a redeployment in your Vercel. So you can see now it's redeploying production. It's a new branch, version 1, and it should rebuild just fine because it was working previously. Now, in the meantime, I'm going to fix this error. Do you guys have any questions so far? That's pretty much what you went through yesterday, trying to make a new branch so you can start making your changes and then eventually pushing that branch to live.
I have a quick question, Alisher. Could you go over the proxy part one more time for me, just so I can get it down?
The proxy part?
Yeah, for FAL, wasn't there a proxy that you had to include as well?
Oh yeah, but we haven't got to file yet. I'm gonna
Oh, my bad.
I'm gonna send all the code in the Slack for everybody, for file specifically.
Okay.
Because there's a few things you have to set up there. But typically, what we did with OpenRouter as well is you will need to set up a route whenever you integrate a change. I'll show you guys my code in a second. There you go. But whenever you integrate a change, basically what you need to do is, and what I highly recommend you do, is first get all this code inside of AI Tutor. So you can pretty much take this whole SRC folder and upload it to something like Beam. And it'll take all these files. You'll have some good understanding. And when you build something, you're go ahead, sorry, before I move
Yeah,
into
I
it.
just wanted to point that out real quick for the recording and for some of the new faces in the audience. Beam is a product of tech in schools. So in the My AI Tutor suite of tools, if you don't have that, there are other options out in the wild, but I will tell you, we don't mention it enough here in class. But um, Tech in Schools has two suites of tools. One is Pixio, and the other's My AI Tutor. My AI Tutor is vital if you want to continue along this course and have this path. Um, it's always updated. It always has the best models, and the subscription fee is low. Right? It's gonna be a business expense to you, but if you don't have it, make sure you're using the ITT code to get 20% off, and that's a locked-in price. So, for those of you that are new, this is not a shill. It's just a really easy all in one kind of tool to have. And Beam is absolutely incredibly powerful. Last night, Sharon also mentioned multibot. Both of these things you will absolutely need if you're going to kind of progress along this career path, because to augment your skills with an AI cohort is leveraging, getting the mechanical advantage, as I said. So just make sure that you're paying attention to that. And if you need any help, um, most of the folks in the room, I can see, I know that you have My AI Tutor in your corner pocket. But for the recording sake, because we do have a lot of people that come in and out, the ITT code is always there. But you know what? As the price goes up, with the new tools that come on the market, you want to lock yourself in and then maintain it. So, Alisher, I apologize for interrupting, but when we bring up Beam or some of the things that are within those ecosystem, um, I want to make sure to explain to our newcomers what that is and why we're here. Because also, when you do subscribe, a kid in New York gets a digital twin copy of it. So if you decide to get rid of it, the kid gets to keep it. So they're always going to have the right kinds of tools in their digital backpack when they go to school and when they're working in their hackathons and things afterwards. So it's just something to pay attention to. I apologize. Alisher, continue on, friend.
No, you're absolutely right. And Beam just makes it easier because you can talk to multiple LLMs in this situation, so you can test out some of your changes and some code integrations between Claude and GPT. Um, Now, in terms of code, so whenever you add code to a project like this, typically you're going to have two types of code, right? You're going to have your front end code and you're going to have your back end code. Now, your front end code is going to be inside of all these dashboard, auth, editor places, and then your back end code is going to be inside of this API folder. So your front end code is going to be what it looks like, right? It's going to be all these components. Maybe you want to create a page, maybe you want to create a component, maybe you want to edit an already existing component. And then your backend code is essentially going to be the function in all these API calls. So if you go to this API folder, you're going to notice we have an upload thing. I added this file proxy, as you can see. Um, and I'll stay here too if you want to add this proxy as well, Cash Money. And the way this project works, this uses app router. So essentially inside of each one of these folders, there's a route.ts file that's responsible for sending a request in the backend. And the reason it does that is because when you send a request in the backend, it's a little bit more obscure, it's a little bit more obfuscated, and it's not as easy to reverse engineer, so it's safer. You can see this chat feature. This is where you use OpenRouter. Again, similar structure, chat, and then inside is a route.ts. Same with auth, same with these other routes. For example, the AI route, subscription, Unsplash, some neon routes here as well. So those are the main differences you guys will find is you have your front end that's very much like what the components look like, the colors. If I go to, let's say, this sign-in component, right? This is a sign-in page, and all it has is the sign-in card. So then if I want to edit the sign-in card, you can see this sign-in card is being imported from this file right here, features auth component sign-in card. And if I wanted to edit the sign-in card, I think I can go to definition. So I can right-click sign-in card and just click go to definition, and it will take me to that component. You could also search for it. You know the name of the component. And this takes you to some of the logic, some of the front-end logic of what some of the buttons do. And then here's what the sign-in card actually looks like. It's full width. You can edit some of these designs. So you have some options there. This is how you kind of navigate your code. You want to edit something, you can right click and go to its definition, and that's where you need to be editing it. Now, this code is very nested, meaning that there's components inside of other components. For example, editor, the editor page is going to have all sorts of different components like buttons. And then you end up going to components, and then inside of components, there's even more stuff. And then this also uses what's called ShatCN. It's a component library. And you can find what it looks like by just Googling it, ShatCN. It's what V0 uses. It's what Vercel uses. And then you can see your options, right? So these are all the components that you're able to integrate. Maybe you want a drawer somewhere. Maybe you want like a hover card. So you can bookmark this and go through some of these components. Maybe they look attractive to you and you want to add them to your app. Like there's some color picker maybe. No, there is no color picker. It's a date picker. But yeah, pretty much you can look through these components. You guys will notice some of these are very similar to what we have in Pixio. For example, I was working with this component just now, this little toast component. Typically in Canva, when you click on download something, you'll get this toast over here that shows you the download and the conversion process. So I was trying to add that, but for file integration. And these components are pretty easy to install. It takes one command to install them. It'll bring in a whole file, and then you can reuse them throughout your app. But yeah, those are my tips for you guys to start integrating the features. As you have these UIs, and by the way, artifacts, if you use Multibot, artifacts uses ShatCN as well, so it's very easy to go from creating an artifact in Multibot to an actual piece of code in your app. And what I like to do is I actually like to take this whole page and give it to AirTutor. And then if I want to integrate this component, I'll just say integrate the ShatCN component and then give it the code. And it helps understand like the updated structure of the component. Okay, guys, questions so far? I'm going to try to finish this file integration so I can show you how to add it in as well. Oh, and
I'm
I
not
think
seeing any hands,
Starbucks
honey.
is
Go
requesting
ahead.
to speak. I try to approve her. I'm not sure she was able to become speaker.
I'm showing Starboss as a speaker, so it may be a you issue. Starboss, did you want to check your mic?
I was just having a problem hearing Alisher, so I just did a couple of laps, but I think we're okay now. Thank you. Sorry for the
Excellent. Excellent. You're not interrupting. We want to make sure everybody can hear. that's definitely a quid pro quo of having class. So I'm glad to see you here. Also, I'm really proud of you, Starboss. You are knocking the ball out of the park. So congratulations to you too for your dedication to your education in general. So go ahead, Alisher. I'm not seeing any questions. So if I see a hand pop up. Now, granted, if you are on a laptop, right? Twitter has some bugs right now, or X. If you're on a laptop, you'll have to send up a different signal flare. Either wave your hand because we can't see the emoji on our side, or either DM us, Cash Money Kev or I, or the purple bubble, and we'll be monitoring those. So go ahead, Alisher.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much all there is to cover in terms of design and how to change some of these designs. Um, and
We went
do you
over
guys have a
before. Oh,
yeah?
sorry, Alisher.
Go
Um,
ahead, Sarah.
we had homework. So we had homework last week where people had to kind of think about and marinate maybe three different options and things that they wanted to accomplish. For those in the audience that were not here last night, um, Cash Money Kev, can you give an example of your three things that you were thinking about? And then before we tie everything up in a bow, we'll talk about the homework that Ross had given us last night too, just because sometimes he gives homework and then it's always fun to have the Alisher interpretation of it to lead us down the primrose path. So go ahead, Cash Money.
Yeah. So what I did, guys, I my three ideas was one, an upscaler for printing, or just like like a really good upscaler, pretty much, and a way to upload for people to upload their own font styles too, because I know some artists that make their own fonts. And then a way to, it's not resizing the image because like when you stretch an image on Canva, it'll stretch out the image too. Um, yeah, some feature like that where you could resize without stretching. But so we're doing the upscale feature that I mentioned last night right now. And Alisher DM me right away, and Ross mentioned too that Foul is the best. And so I'm excited for this. This Foul is super cheap, and it's the best. It's the best tool for its cost, pretty much for any upscaler. So I'm super excited for this.
Yeah, Fal gives you access to a lot of integration. Besides upscale, they
Which
have a really
upscaler
good
do you
backend.
use? Alistair, which upscaler would you use on file?
The easiest one is Aura SR. Just quick, it gives you extremely high resolution. Um, but these are just raw upscale, right? This is not the creative
Oh yeah,
upscale, so they have
no
creative
creative.
upscale as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, no. That's I've a lot of clients with like generating AI images, and they're happy with the image. We just want it to look sharper.
Yeah, this Aura XR one is good. I actually just upscaled the picture that I'm trying to download. Let's see if I can go to it.
One of the other suggestions last night was a mood board, and coming from Hallie. And so the exploration in Vision and Miro both came into the conversation. And I just wanted to kind of put a little asterisk because for those of you that are in the Mighty Networks, right? So last season, in order to keep our work, you kind of had to, be in the Mighty Networks. The Mighty Networks is basically a third branch underneath the umbrella of Tech in Schools. So you have the Tech in Schools suite of tools, My AI Tutor and Pixio, but then you have this kind of thing off to the side, which is the Mighty Networks, and that's where you can continue to have your web pages and things like that kind of hosted and things, classes, etc. And Miro, which is a really cool tool for collaborative mood boards. So when you're working with a client, for instance, you both can kind of hunt and gather different things and put them into a collective. It's kind of like for those of you addicted to Pinterest, but on steroids, right? So you have the collaborative element to it. And so that was one of the things that we were talking about also as one of the third or the three things that we're trying to think of. So in addition to Scalar having a collaborative environment, and Ross had mentioned that that would be in these classes in Mighty Networks. So if you're in the Slack channel and you're still not a part of the Mighty Networks, that's kind of us on the periphery. I consider that a continuing education. So when I was a broker, you had to pay for classes and things like that to maintain your license, right? This would be one of those things. So you would kind of classify it on the spreadsheet as your costs as a continuing education or a professional association, so that you're constantly being fed new kind of classes and use cases that you can augment and kind of play and plug into your business plan. So I wanted to make sure that we kind of touched base on the Mighty Networks piece of the puzzle, just so that the recordings, people are looking at it, thinking about it, and that was one of the suggestions last night. So um, apologize again for the interruption, but it is an important thing. And Alisher, you can go ahead and finish your thought with the scalar option with Dave Meir.
Yeah, there's another one in there. It's just called upscale image. It's pretty good too. It's the one we used before. I guess it does a little bit of upscaling for faces as well. And as far as the Mighty Networks goes, Mighty Networks has a few benefits there. So number one is if you were in season 2 and 3 when we did cPanel, and you want to keep your cPanel because eventually we're going to need to, reallocate the resources. So that lets you keep it as well. So there's no like competition where you have to fight over the cPanel space. And also, another benefit is that we have live streams there where we're going to be building some of these apps that you haven't built before. So, for example, originally in week 1, we had a few options. And one of the options, I think, was the Miro clone. Then we also have some codes that are clones of Spotify. So being able to actually create your own Spotify. So those are some of the live streams that we have in Mighty Networks that are, I think, private to Mighty Networks. And we also have some live streams on how to use our tools to create actual content with Pixio. I think last week they were creating some sort of an advertisement with Ross, Kirk, and somebody else. I know he has another one planned coming up either at the end of this week or next week.
I had one other tidbit that needed to be kind of talked about. Last night, Julie Todd had an issue in Slack. And I know that Starboss is also going to have this issue in Slack. When we're invited to the Slack channels behind the scenes through Tech in Schools, we're invited as students. So if you're using your professional business name, then Slack automatically kind of bumps you up into subscription model. And we don't want people having to pay to be in that ecosystem. And so if you got bumped out, it was for your protection so that you wouldn't get dinged, right? But make sure that you connect back with Nick, Alisher, and Ross in the Tech in Schools and get a new link, and then you're just going to be yourself. So, for instance, I'm Sarah Hodston, right? If I go for, Serendipitous LLC, then that's a problem. Or if I'm using my logo for the company or whatever, you want to make sure that you can continue to be in that ecosystem as a guest or as a student of Tech in Schools, because if the streams cross, then you have an issue. So I just wanted to make sure we're doing all the last housekeeping issues, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. That is something to marinate on, because I do see some new faces in the crowd this morning, and you may fall under that because if you had a previous Slack channel, those streams, just like in Ghostbusters, they're crossing and you're summoning demons. So stop it. No. Go ahead, Alisher.
Yeah, if you have an issue in Slack, just hit us up and we'll probably like resend you an invite code, and you can just re-sign up as a student and not be affiliated with any organization but ours. Because there is a benefit, and we noticed that I guess after about 8 weeks, if you sign up as an organization, Slack kicks you out unless you pay. But if you sign up as a student with us, then you get that Slack subscription for free, so you don't get any limits on sending and connecting to everybody in Slack. Okay, now also, I guess in terms of integrating features, do you guys have any questions on how you might go about integrating some of the features you want to add before we start closing? No, I see no hands, no more requests. Okay,
I
remember,
was
guys,
trying
we're.
to think of anything,
Oh, go ahead.
Alistair, but
Uh,
I literally can't think of anything because I think I was just like kind of uh, simmering over everything that we've gone over all these weeks, and it kind of just hit me. I had an epiphany. It's like, wow, we kind of learned how the front end works pretty well, how the back end works pretty like we've gone on the ins and outs, and I feel like everybody's kind of asked any question under the sun there possibly can be. I can't. Maybe I don't know what I don't know, as the phrase goes. But um, it's kind of cool to see that everybody came with some ideas and everybody's satisfied. It seems so. I'm pretty happy. But if anybody did have any questions, now is the time. Now's the time.
I'm not seeing any. The other thing too is
I
you
have a
might not
question.
have a. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Um,
Go ahead.
I'm kind of really interested in image upscalers. I'm running into lots of problems of AI generating okay graphics for social, and I can upscale them, and then they're okay graphics for articles and production on the web. But I do print work as well, and I find it's really bad. So I'm just wondering, not even FAL, but is there any AI upscalers out there that are kind of reliable when it comes to that really high fidelity quality that would be, print safe?
I'm not sure. I haven't really worked with print. I know Sharon. She's doing the magazine, so maybe she might have some
Oh,
insight.
is she
Maybe give
printing
you
the
some
magazine?
different. Yeah, she
Oh, okay. I'll pick her brain then. Yeah.
they shipped. I think they shipped the first month in the beginning of this month.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome, guys. I'm right there with you, Dave. I'm loving the idea of taking AI generated content and taking it to print. So that's what I've been looking for too. I'm gonna have to talk to Sharon myself. And I've seen the first edition of the magazine, and it looks so clean, guys. If you haven't yet, go check it out. Sharon's magazine's about to be popping, selling in the front of King Supers and Walmart's and stuff. It's gonna be cool. I guarantee you, and being subscriptionized out to people's mailboxes everywhere. I can tell you right now, people are gonna love that magazine. It looks so high quality. I mean, literally, the paper looks like it's not even paper. It just that's how high quality it looks. It looks shiny. I love it. But Alicia, did you have any last little closing notes? And then I'll go over to Sarah too before we close on out of here.
I would say the only thing is make sure you make a new branch whenever you want to make a major change. If you're doing it for next week, and start editing your design. Start maybe adding some components that the template doesn't have that make it pretty, that make it UI friendly, where the user, also where it doesn't exactly look like Canva. Like you want to differentiate yourself a little bit.
Especially if you're going to production, because you have to have a change of was it more than 75% of the code or something along those lines? A massive amount. It can't look anything like Canva, guys, if you're going to be taking it to production. So make sure everything's changed. I love it, Alistair. Over to you, Sarah, and then I'll close this on out.
Well, I just want to say you guys are doing awesome. You're showing up for yourself, and that's 100% of what other people don't do. They'll sit back and they'll say, "Okay, woulda, coulda, shoulda." Showing up for yourself, hacking your own education, giving yourself the permission to upskill, and I think that's a big deal. We're all living very hectic and harried lives, and life can get away with us, especially this time of the year. If you're in Michigan, you got to be out doing yard work, you got to be preparing for winter, you got to be doing everything. There's always a gotta be done, right? And to fight tooth and nail for an hour of time in Thursday mornings or a couple hours Wednesday night, and then eke out an extra hour each day that you can give back to yourself to learn these new skills. And Ross had mentioned last night, OpenAI is posting, job opportunities for people with the skills that you just learned at over $200,000 a year for, you know, income, right? The skills that you have in just this little bit, you may not believe it, but they're incredibly monetizable. Whether it's learning your Python code, whether it's learning how to do these little stacks, and you don't have to be a master. You just have to be, at least proficient and fluid. And the more that you practice, the more that you put in that 1 hour a day, it's no different than your 10,000 steps, right? It happens in little increments and apps and little um, daily decisions, right? To say, here, I'm giving this 45 minutes here, or I'm giving this hour here, and I'm not going to compromise on it. That is one of the toughest decisions because the world is pulling you from that. And I just want to say, each and every one of you, today, this morning, last night, like Ross had also mentioned, we had like 80 people that first week. And now we have a consistent maybe 20, 30, right, at the most. And you can see those numbers dwindling down. It's not saying that, you know, the class is bad or anything else. It's just that there are folks that are absolutely rugged, determined, and they are summoning the grit to follow through. And following through, taking your idea to impact is such a satisfying thing. It's not just satisfying for you, it's satisfying for those of us who are watching from the cheap seats who just really enjoy watching people achieve and achieve greatness. And I will tell you, the idea that you have in your head, the one that is propelling you forward and making you show up. I know many people have a little sticky note on their computer. It's their why. Why are they showing up every single day? I can tell you, the world needs your idea, right? Those innovations set out into the wild are the catalyst for someone else to build on it. So, in a small little way, you're tethering yourself to the timeline of history. And I'll tell you, folks, history will forget almost everybody, right? But those that are tethered, they're the story worth retelling. You almost become an immortal. So, keep with it. Stick to your idea, that grit, and just know that there are people out in the wild, those of us here to your left and your right, that believe in you. We believe in your crazy, amazing idea. That's not just, blowing smoke up your skirt or, giving you platitudes. We genuinely want to see you succeed. And so it's a tremendous gift and a privilege to hear your ideas and watch you take them to impact. So I want to say thank you to Nick Alisher and Ross for their continued dedication and hard work. They truly are changing the world for future dwellers, whether it's in the New York school system, whether it's through the teachers that they're constantly in, connection with and equipping, enabling, and inspiring to use those AI cohorts, but the fact that they too show up every single day. They sit there, they do it, they put the work in, and they do it for perfect strangers, us, right? Nick Alisher and Ross are dear friends and part of my family. Cash Money Kev, of course, he's not, or he's always here and behind Josh Hellman. He and Matea are just incredible brothers, and they're wingmen to Josh Hellman. And I love the dedication that these three gentlemen have. Luke, also behind the scenes, creating awesome for the Innovators Think Tank. The four gentlemen are kind of, in the trenches with one another, and how they have each other's back is the kind of thing that I think all of us should aspire to have friends like that. Cash Money is definitely one of my best friends now in this ecosystem. I just adore him, and I think what he's doing for his family and for his extended pocket family are just wonderful things. So I just want to give them their flowers, say thank you for allowing me to help in a small way. It means more than you'll ever know. I enjoy this time, especially at this point in my life, watching folks build. It is just like my garden out in the back. You're planting these seeds and you're watching the vineyards grow, knowing knowing almost full well that you're not going to benefit from, these trees and these vines because, you escape your mortal coil. But having the delight in knowing that they are going to feed future generations is something that is very powerful. And if you're not there yet in your journey, you will get there. Trust me, when those gray streaks show up, you start thinking about it. And it is a tremendous joy to plant things for people in the future that you'll never know. So, at any rate, Cash Money Kev, it's time for you to close us out, my love. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, folks. We'll see you same time, same place next week.
Awesome, Sarah. Thanks for all those awesome words. You can call me Goose. That's a Top Gun reference for anybody out there. But I'll be a goose to anybody in here that needs it. Um, that goes for anybody. If you ever need any help, just DM me.
He'll also
Or
sing "If You've Lost a Loving Feeling." I will tell you that.
100% I will. 100%. And I'll play some beach volleyball whenever you need it. But anyways, guys, all jokes aside, um, this has been an awesome recap. It was nice and quick. Alistair killed it again. It was great to see everybody that wanted to caught up, get caught up. And I mean, to kind of piggyback off a little bit of Sarah's points before I go into the final closing notes. Uh, Truly, Nick, Alistair, and Ross have given us, the artists, the paintbrushes and the tools needed to succeed. And now for homework, we are literally going to go out and paint. It's time to take your ideas to impact, change whatever colors you want, change the app how you want it to be. And yeah, so I'm super excited. And with that, guys, don't forget to check out AI Builders tomorrow and Humans Make Cool Things. And hit that ITT number 72